Okay guys, if it isn't obvious by now, I'm really big into bait finesse fishing. Now in fact, my 3 personal best bass were all caught on bait finesse tackle. Now I've tried out pretty much every bait finesse reel technology from pretty much every company out there, from SHIMANO, DAIWA, GARCIA, even Chinese companies. And I bought and used bait finesse rods from several companies as well. Now I can only speak for myself, but as a bait finesse angler, I try to push the boundaries of how light of a lure I can throw. And throwing lighter and lighter lures eventually requires even more extreme tackle than even the current bait finesse tackle that's available right now. So let's go back a few years. I had acquired several bait finesse rods and reels in an attempt to throw even lighter and lighter lures, and there was one lure that I was wanting to throw in particular, which I'll share with you guys later. And I ran into what I call the bait finesse wall. And the bait finesse wall is 1/32 of an ounce. And what I mean by that is that 1/32 of an ounce is the lowest lure rating that I've ever seen on a rod. In fact, I have several rods with the 1/32 of an ounce lure rating. And let me tell you guys, those rods really can't handle a true 1/32 of an ounce with any kind of effectiveness or distance. Now, in case you were wondering, 1/32 of an ounce is 0.875 grams. So that's under 1 gram. So I waited a couple of years because bait finesse was really taking off a few years ago, and I was expecting one of those OCD radical Japanese companies to come out with a bait casting rod with a lure rating even lower than 1/32 of an ounce, but unfortunately that never materialized, and I realized they probably weren't going to do it. So I decided to take matters into my own hands, and the plan was I was going to buy a high-end spinning rod. I believe it was going to be a Poison Ultima super ultralight spinning rod, and have a custom rod maker convert that over into a bait casting rod. Then I started this YouTube channel, and that project got put on hold. So the quest to make the ultimate bait finesse combo has been put on hold for almost 2 years now. Now, a few weeks ago, I was browsing the internet, and I'll be damned, I saw a bait casting rod with the most unreal radical lure ratings I'd ever seen. And the crazy part about it was that it wasn't from Japan, this rod was from China. So of course, I immediately bought the rod. Now I've had it for a few weeks, and I've just been waiting for the Japanese fishing shows to finish up before I shared it with you guys. Okay guys, so let me introduce you to the most radical bait finesse rod in the world. The Kuying Teton, and I believe this model is called the TTC. I'll let you guys take a good look at this beautifully made rod. It's got pink and green colors, so it's going to be hard to match up a reel color wise with this thing. But yeah, the build quality is pretty decent. It's not the best, but it's beautifully made. A lot of nice little details like this carbon ring, this textured foregrip to help you turn, the knob there, this little carbon insert here with the little logo. And let's go over the specs. Now this is a 5'10" 2-piece rod, as you can see, and this thing is supposed to have Fuji guides and silicon carbide inserts, and you can see just how thin this rod blank is. And it actually comes with a really decent rod bag right here. The Teton TTC 5'10", and the rod bag actually has a foam padding on one side, so that's pretty nice. Now this rod is not cheap when you consider the place I bought it from, which is AliExpress, the place that people go to buy budget tackle, and it costed about $110. So for AliExpress, that's pretty expensive, but in the grand scheme of bait finesse rods, that is a bargain, especially when you consider what this thing brings to the table. And speaking of which, let's talk about why I bought this. And I bought it because of these numbers right here. Hopefully you guys can see that. This thing has a lure rating of 0.3 grams to 3 grams. So just to put that into context, how light that is, 1/64 of an ounce is 0.4375 grams. So this is supposedly rated to throw even lighter than 1/64 of an ounce. Now whether it can do it, that's yet to be seen. Now how do they achieve a lure rating like this? And let me show you how. Okay guys, so to illustrate just how radical this Teton rod is, I've brought out two of my more extreme bait finesse rods. The Major Craft Valky, which is 6'9", ultralight, and this is a bass rod, and the lure ratings for this rod are 1/32 of an ounce to 1/4 of an ounce. Remember that 1/32 of an ounce wall that I was talking about earlier? And then here's a pretty extreme, really specialized rod, and this is the SHIMANO Trout 1 casting rod, and this is used for fishing small streams, casting light lures for trout, and this has a lure rating, and I doubt you guys could be able to see that, but it's 1 gram to 7 grams. So it's roughly a little bit over 1/32 of an ounce to 1/4 ounce. And that's as low as these Japanese rods will go as far as rod rating. Now this Teton, it says that the lower end is 0.3 grams. And let me show you guys how they achieve that, or how they think they achieve that. Now those rods that I had, the Valky and the Trout 1, were 2-piece, so I took out the top sections, and to achieve the lure rating of 1/32 of an ounce, a lot of the rod companies will make their rod tips 1 millimeter in diameter. So I don't have a micrometer with me, I lost mine, but these are about 1 millimeter in diameter. Alright, now the Teton is almost 40% thinner than that. This is only, I believe, 0.63 millimeters in diameter. And you can really see that the camera can't even focus on it, it's so thin. So let me let you guys take a look at the difference in thinness in these rod tips here. Hopefully the camera will pick that up. But yeah, look how thin the Teton tip is versus even the ultra specialized SHIMANO Trout 1. So yeah, that's how they think they are going to achieve that lure rating of 0.3 grams, and that's crazy. And here's the tip versus the Major Craft. This tip is ultra thin. Now, I don't know if it makes a difference, but they say that the tip is half hollow, half solid. So I'm assuming probably the top half is going to be the solid part. And it's supposed to have a fast action, not that that would matter with a rod this thin. but it feels really light. It's only 47 grams, I think, as far as the weight of the whole rod. So you got to be careful with this rod tip. I'm sure if a fly sneezes on this thing might break. But yeah, that's how they claim to be able to throw lures down to 0.3 grams. So the sweet spot on this rod is probably going to be about 1.5 grams, but I've yet to take it out and cast it yet. So you're probably wondering, what the hell kind of lures am I going to throw that require a rod as radical as this? And that's a good question. Okay guys, so it is the middle of winter right now, and a lot of you guys are probably having a tough time catching bass, especially if you are a bank angler like I am. Where I live, the bass tend to, during the winter, go really deep because the water is warmer where it's deeper, and it's really tough to catch bass or even find bass to catch because of that. So a lot of guys, including myself, we turn to trout fishing in the winter. And where I live, it is possible to catch trout, if the conditions are right, with, standard bait finesse lures, even ones as light as these. You got a 1/16 of an ounce little jerkbait, little 1/16 of an ounce crappie jig, 1/8 of an ounce little minnow. I believe the heaviest lure here is 5 grams. But where I live, the trout get caught most on this bait right here. I'm gonna drop these down and let you guys see what these are. I'm gonna tell you what it is, but a lot of you guys probably already know what this lure is. And where I live, these things are the big producers when it comes to catching trout on artificial lures. And of course, in case you don't know what these are trout magnets. Right here. So the trout magnet is basically this little piece of rubber, right, with a split tail, and the pack comes with a 1/64 ounce jig head, which I'm gonna pull out for you. This is a little panfish magnet kit, which is basically the same damn thing. But here's the jig head. So this is supposed to be 1/64 of an ounce. So usually people throw this with spinning gear, of course. But of course, when you like using bait casters, you try to kind of use them as much as possible. And I don't like using spinning gear, but you get the picture. I wanted to be able to put together a bait cast combo that could throw lures this light effectively for trout. Now I'm not gonna kid myself into thinking that this is gonna be able to be cast 50 yards. I just want to get a usable distance with some kind of fishability when it comes to casting or castability. And here's some other lures that I'm going to try to use. Oh crap, where'd it go? Some little feather hair jigs right here. These you can buy at Walmart. I think you can buy trout magnets at Walmart as well. And then I saw this thing here. It looked like the smallest little swim bait I've ever seen. And it came in a pack. And I decided, what the hell? It's pretty expensive though, it's almost $5. Alright, so let's weigh these lures just to see how much they weigh. Okay, so let's start with the trout magnet. So trout magnet, that one weighs almost 1 gram, 0.9 grams. 0.9 grams, alright, pretty consistent. 0.9 grams. Yep, so pretty much all these weigh about 0.9 grams. So according to the rod rating, that should be no problem for that rod. That little swim bait, wow, it's even lighter at 0.7 grams. And these little jigs, wow, the lightest yet at 0.6 grams. So yeah, I'm gonna try to throw these ultralight super tiny lures with the bait cast setup. And the key word is try. Now I've tried throwing these tribe magnets before with some of my most expensive, lowest rated bait cast gear, and yeah, it didn't work. 1/16 of an ounce, maybe even lower than that, a little bit lower than that, is probably the lowest you can go with the current modern BFS setup. You know, a high-end reel like a ALDEBARAN or SS Air or the REVO LTX BF8. But the rod that I have, and you know the ones I have, the Valky, the Corza, all these super ultralight BFS rods could not handle this trout magnet. So hopefully this Teton will be able to do that for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first try it out with a stock bait finesse reel. And that reel is the Abu Garcia REVO LTX BF8. Now this reel has the lightest stock spool of any bait finesse reel ever made. So I think this is going to be the perfect reel for the job, if the brakes are good enough. That's the only question, is these brakes. So I'm going to string up some 2-pound line on this thing. Now this thing is strung up right now because I'm planning to take all the bait finesse rods out for a shootout if the weather permits this weekend, but I'm going to restring this with 2-pound line and see what it can do. But don't worry if it can't handle it. I have a contingency plan, as I've ordered a spool for the ALDEBARAN and it's sitting there waiting on my desk. And if the REVO can't handle it, we're gonna use the modified ALDEBARAN BFS. Alright guys, I know this is probably not of interest to a lot of you non-bait finesse guys, but for you bait finesse guys, check this rod out. It's available on AliExpress. Maybe you want to wait till I show you the results. But even if it doesn't cast, you know, lures this light, if I can cast this, you know, maybe 10 yards, I'll be happy. Alright guys, so be on the lookout for that. And thanks a lot.